All right, we are back and we're going to stay with the scaling here for a second. So, folks that are the solopreneur, they got the logo business, they got the consulting business, and they realize that the business is dependent on them. What is the first step to scaling? What is the first thing they need to do to get out of their own way?
Yeah, I mean, I think niching down is a trite old expression that we've all heard before, but I do believe it is the first step in this process, because what you'll find is when you start to niche down and really start to isolate the ideal customer, the person that really values what it is that you do, you start to get a homogeneous pain point, like something that all of those customers experience. And when you do that, you can start to create a productized service that all of those customers will want. Again, the enemy of scale is customization, right? You say, Gino, well, we're just going to do the focaccia sandwiches and we're going to become but we can't get rid of this chicken parm. What I'm saying is exactly the opposite. I'm saying that, yeah, you need to get rid of the chicken parm.
Kill the chicken parm.
Because the moment you kill, you keep the chicken parm, now you've increased the complexity of your business by a factor of exponential as opposed to linear. Now we've got to have different chefs, we've got to have different ingredients, we've got to have different supply chains to make sure we've got the chicken parm ingredients. We got to have the ovens at a different temperature. We got to have a different opening procedure. We got to have a different closing. Like, the complexity just exploded because you didn't have the courage to turn off the chicken parm.
I don't want Jake to beat me up. That's why. Jake's going to beat me up. He's not going to come back.
And that happens all the time. That's a trivial little example.
You got to let Jake go, baby.
We don't ever want to look into the eyes of a customer and say, no, we're not supplying that service anymore. We're not offering that product anymore. But that's the price of scale. It's the price of actually doing some of the stuff, to going from having a glorified job to having a business you own and could sell. The price is focus on one thing. And the only way you're going to get there, I believe, is to niche down your target audience to a point where you get to a homogeneous need, right? So in the case of the focaccia sandwiches, it's probably a different customer. It's probably a guy who's on the road, who comes in, who needs a quick lunch, wants to, then the person, again, I don't know anything about running a restaurant, so please correct me.
You're doing good, man.
But my point is that regardless of what business you're in, you're going to want to niche down to a very, very specific type of person and find a group of people who have the same need. And that's your target segment onto which you can start building some of the things we talked about: recurring revenue, productized service, et cetera.
You actually nailed it, actually. When I'm thinking about it, business is different 30 and 40 years ago. I opened the restaurant with my dad. Supply chains were different. Profit margins were different. Everything was completely different. And back then, I think you could have served more. There was less competition as well. I mean, when he opened up back in the 70s, people really didn't go out and eat. It wasn't a thing. So it was a different kind of experience. Now, as you're niching it down, there's so much competition and you want to become a specialist at something. There's so many places for you to go and eat. And I was just brought up in the restaurant that you have to have osso buco and you also have to have chicken nuggets for you. I mean, it was just a crazy concept. And I had to extricate myself from that situation and say, Dad, we're not doing this anymore. I'm going to go do apartments. And I think the apartment space and multifamily has allowed me to say, oh, wow, the residents, this is what they want. I don't know, monthly recurring revenue. We have pet fees. We have late fees. We have, application, all these different kinds of fees. I can see it so much clearly in this business. And now when I look back, I could have implemented that in the restaurant business. I was just with somebody who, I would say he's my father, but he was my mentor. We got into the business. It was just a different way of doing it. And continuing to do that was just the death spiral for me. And it would have just led to the death spiral. So, I mean, I think that information is completely spot on.
Yeah, I think, again, as I said before we hit record, I don't know much about real estate investing. But what I do know is I feel like it's a great business to grow your capital. And it's hard for a very young or new entrepreneur to get in because they need that first, unless they've got wealthy parents or they've got someone willing to lend them the money, that first rung on the wealth ladder to establish buy their first apartment or whatever. And I think some of the things we're talking about today can be really powerful for that first business. If you can build a business, create some systems and sell it and get the capital to then get into a more capital intensive business like apartments, for example. Like, and again, it doesn't have to be I talk to my kids about this all the time. It doesn't have to be a super sexy business. You can take a very boring, like lawn care as an example. All you need is a lawnmower to get your feet on the ground. You build out a network. You come up with some unique way that you market and position your lawn care. You build out a team of people who can cut the lawns, and you build it to 300, 400, 500 grand in recurring revenue. That's a business you can sell. And it's probably a business you can sell for a few $100 grand, which is enough to get into the apartment business. You know what I mean? Like you can take some of the things we talked about today and build a business, sell it, and have the capital to get into a more capital intensive space as well.